this glass. Oh, but this thing was so big, that and of course, I went out because we had, went out on the balcony and you could see the ocean rolling and stuff. Couldn't feel a thing in there. The only thing, we went to dinner in the back of the ship one night, and the only thing you felt was a little vibration. But it had to be because the big screws were back there, But you didn't feel any of this, and I looked at the water, and the water was just perfectly still on the table. So there was nothing.
Well, it was 4-1, and then it was 5-0.
I mean, it was great.
After a little bit.
It was like 85, 88 degrees all the time, and I mean, it was nice. Yeah, there wasn't a bad part of it.
Men?
Except my knee was blown out and I was on crutches. Yeah, I messed my knee up and that just... Some days I could get around and just, hobble around. Yeah.
Like the old Creedence song, huh?
Hey, great.
Yeah, down on the corner. Yeah, something like that. Okay.
Leave that off. It's hot in here.
They'll be here after that, I'm sure.
They were sitting here at 5 o'clock.
On other times. Yeah. Oh, I know. Nothing that controversial, probably.
Moving close.
We need to, we're like working on one.
There's some right here. Oh, you got it. Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss or your whatever you call it. Well, you can't choose your right. Well, saved by the...
Go ahead.
No, there's some air right there. Yes, I saw.
December 18th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Barry.
Here.
Councilmember Del Rosario.
Yes.
Councilmember Draper.
Here.
Councilmember Hatley.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Goodson.
Here.
Mayor Delmeyer.
Here. We'll convene to closed session. Maybe you can open the doors. It's warm in here.
It is.
Is it warm?
Jesus.
What's that?
Okay. So just add them to my pile.
Scott, how are you? Good, how are you? Well,
Did somebody just say something about keys? I didn't even catch it.
because you have like this meeting, you have this meeting, and you have a partial next. Why get people all in it?
I just got it, and
No,
it
I know.
surprised me.
I know. I just didn't want people to see. It's the aggravation of it.
Welcome everybody to the Oroville City Council meeting. We've just got back from closed session. Direction given, no action taken. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are no presentations this evening, so we'll be moving on. If you would like to address the council this evening on any item, you can speak on non-agenda items coming right up. Please fill out the blue card and hand it to the clerk, and she'll get it over to me. Okay, give me just a minute here. Am I missing non-agenda items? It's just right up front.
It's at the top of the next page.
Got it. Real small on the top of the next page. Thank you. All right, non-agenda items. We have Bobby O'Reilly and then Billy Spear.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. It's a wonderful evening. It is by far a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for all of your service to the city of Oroville and all of your years presenting and representing for the city of Oroville and your mayorship and representing us in a positive, bright light manner. I appreciate it. I know some of the community appreciates it. So I would like to say thank you, Madam Mayor, for your service to the community of Oroville. Jack, Marlene, I would like to also say thank you. 4 years serving on this council. Thank you for not running this town into the ground as much as you could have. Your service to this town in the beginning was good. Yeah, there's still 2 minutes left. Your service to this town in the beginning was good, and it steadily decreased. You have dishonored the citizens of this town. You have made us look a fool in the eyes of others. I am so happy tonight to be here for your last meeting to tell you farewell, and please don't ever apply and run for the city council again, because it is not a job meant for you.
Billy Spear. And then Celia Hirschman.
Madam Mayor, I came here tonight to pray, but also it's Christmas and bring great news of great joy about the Savior of the world, which is Jesus, as we celebrate and this new year Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank you for your service, and the outgoing council members. I wish you all the best, and the best for the new people that are coming in. I am grateful and thankful for all the public servants who give their lives to serving, and it's not easy being the bad guy all the time. Usually there's half the people mad at you no matter what you do. And so I would also like to apologize because I know that times I've been abrasive, and anyways, I do from sincerity of my heart thank all of you for your service, and I look forward to this next year of building in our city, the new year coming, and also this wonderful Christmas season. So Father, I thank you for all your public servants, all the people who have laid down their lives and who have come to make our city a better place. And Lord, I just pray for a spirit of celebration, Christmas, a celebration of Christ, as we celebrate the anointed one of great joy, good news for the world, that a Savior. And Father, I pray that you would help us to put our differences aside and work for the betterment of our community, and to rise to the occasion to help the people of Paradise and Concal and Magalia and all the people who have been burned out. We thank you for all the heroes, Lord. We hear of all the people that rushed in and to save people, and all the heroes that are still being heroes, who are opening up their homes and giving of their finances, and what a loving and a great community that we have. And Father, as we go forward, we focus on the things that are good, the things that are pure and praiseworthy, the things that are of good report. We look forward to you doing miracles, Lord, through us to the people of Paradise and Concal and Magalia. It would use us to bring comfort, use us to show your light and your love. Help us, Lord, to look past the problems to the solution. Bless and anoint. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Celia Hirschman, I want to thank all of you. I know some of you are leaving, and this will be your last meeting, and I'm grateful for all the work that you've done. I don't think people realize just how much work what you do is, and whether I agree with all decisions or not is irrelevant. Thank you for doing what you do. I also wanted to mention, having lived in New York during 9/11 and watching how that community came together in such a personal way, I'm very grateful to live in Oroville and watch this community come together. I live right around the corner from Bird Street, and I saw, 6 temporary houses moved into the Bird Street School for the Paradise kids yesterday. And I know we're going to get the dogs and cats, and I can't wait to go walk them and pet them. And I want to ask a favor, and that is that all the houses that you have, and there's one right on Robinson down the street from me, all the homes that you have that are on your books that are empty, please rent them to campfire victims. They need homes rather than them living in, I think are 750 people living in temporary housing at the Silver Fairgrounds, Silver whatever that is. I also want to ask you to consider taking, and I know you're starting to do it with the Jehovah's Witness group, taking some of your empty lots, or helping to negotiate empty lots so that people can move their trailers in and live here at least temporarily until they get their homes back. It seems the only decent thing we can do, and we will be judged by how we react, and we've done a great job, and I just want to make sure we use these assets that are sitting fallow. Thank you.
Thank you. Dawn Fultz, and then Annie Terry.
Merry Christmas. I'll be brief. I just want to apologize for Bobby O'Reilly and his insulting comments. And I want to thank Jack Berry and Marlene Del Rosario, who are both leaving, for their commitment to doing a good job and for having the courage to stand up to DWR in the face of pressure from the mayor and the city attorney and not vote in favor of agreements with DWR. Thank you both very much.
Annie Terry?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. As you all know, of course, we are not going to be able to hold the community Christmas dinner at the municipal auditorium, and we have made other arrangements. I'm going to be sending an email to all of you and also to anybody in the council room today that would be willing to share their email address with me. I'd like to try. We're going to use social media. We're going to use the news. But also, if you could contact all of your email contacts and let them know, let them help us get the word out about the location we're going to be using instead. The same times, but just a different location. So if you could all please share that information with as many people through social media and through your email contacts as you possibly could. We would still like to have an amazing turnout for this event. We have a lot of toys and a lot of volunteers who have been wrapping toys for this. So
what is that location?
It's going to be at the Oroville Fire Department. So we're partnering with Oroville Fire, and we're going to be doing it there. So I'm going to be sending out a flyer in the email. So if you could do everything you could to help us to promote that, thank you. Oh, also, I would like to tell all of you who are leaving the city council after your term is completed that you have a tough job to do. And I don't have a good poker face. I would not be a good person to do that. It's a very difficult situation to sit on that side of the dais instead of this one. And I appreciate your time of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. And thank you for understanding about the municipal auditorium this year, both Steve and Annie. Thank you. Okay, that's it on the non-agenda. Is there anybody else that wishes to come forward and speak on a non-agenda? Okay, moving on. We have a consent calendar, items 1, 2, 3. Is that it? 3 items on the consent? 4.
There's 10
5,
items, Madam Mayor.
6. Okay, down to 10. Items 1 through 10. We have a speaker on item number 8, so we're going to pull item number 8. Any questions or comments on the consent calendar? Either that, looking for a motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar items 1 through 10, exempt item 8.
I'll second that.
Voting's open. All votes are in. Does anybody wish to change? Voting closed.
Motion
Moving on to item number 8, municipal auditorium fee. Consent calendar passed. Sorry, Jackie.
Yeah.
Item number 8, municipal auditorium fee waiver request by Oroville Rescue Mission. We do have a speaker on that. Pastor Steve Terry.
Good evening, Council. I'm guilty of a faux pas. I didn't realize it was on the consent calendar anyway, or I wouldn't have had it pulled. But obviously, my wife has addressed the fact and what the fee waiver is about. In the event that the auditorium is open, we don't think it's going to be, but at this late hour, we had to come up with Plan B. and we're looking forward to either way. But anyway, that's my faux pas. I just did not read well. So I'll just shut up and go back to my seat and wish you all Merry Christmas and thank you for your service.
Merry Christmas. Okay. So do we want to vote on this or pull it? Just in case by some miracle.
I think you ought to have a motion and approve it. That's certainly staff's recommendation, just in case.
Just in case.
I make a motion that we waive the fee for the Oroville Rescue Mission for in case they need it for their Christmas dinner in 2018.
I second.
First and second, voting's open. You could have said 2019. I mean, just like throwing it in there.
Through 25.
All votes are in. Does anybody wish to change? Voting closed.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to regular business, item number 11, Highway 162 BTA grant, Oroville, Orodam Boulevard Bike Lane Project, design amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Massaro, Contract City Engineer, Public Works. This is a project that's been around for a little while. We're trying to get it moved forward. We've been working with Caltrans for about a year to get an encroachment permit approved, and they've been keep coming back with comments. And a couple items that were still outstanding were the maintenance agreement, which you just approved under consent. Thank you. And then they want some redesign at the intersection for traffic signalization. So we're going to have to accommodate that to move the project forward. In order to do that, I need to go back to the design firm GHD for an amendment to their contract. And that's what this item's about, so we can revise the design plans and finally get this out to bid. Any questions?
Any questions? Looking for a motion?
I move that we approve the amendment to revise the project design.
A second.
Voting's open. All votes are in. Does anybody wish to change their vote? Voting closed.
Motion carries.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to respectfully request that we pull item number 13.
Okay. We didn't get that additional information in.
Yes, I skipped ahead.
Okay. All right. Pull item number 13. Item number 12, budget policy review and potential revision. This was requested by Councilmember Berry and Councilmember Draper. And there is a speaker. Draper or Berry, do you have anything that you want to add before? Or does Bill have anything to say?
Essentially what this is just a cleanup of our budget policy. It's also adding a caveat to it that precludes staff from approving any contracts prior to the contract coming to council for council approval. This request, putting this into policy, would prohibit us from moving anything forward until we brought it to you as far as a contractual agreement, regardless of the size of the contractual agreement. That's the big main change into this. I know Councilperson Berry is interested in having this as an ordinance. Right now, this policy would stop staff from doing anything as far as contractually without council approval. It would be a additional step we could take of moving to an ordinance. If the council would direct to do that, we could bring that back. Right now, staff would be acting inappropriately if the staff did approve a contract without bringing it to the full council. So this is the main change in there. A lot of this was cleanup done in conjunction with Director Wright. There was old language in there that was removed. So it's pretty much a straightforward business practice with the addition of bringing contracts, all contracts to you.
Councilmember Berry?
All this would do is make all the council aware of all the contracts that are made. Sometimes they fall through the cracks and we're not aware of contracts that are issued. And it's just a good idea to make sure everybody's on board to make decisions on contracts and the future.
Councilmember Draper, you requested to have this on?
Yeah, I did. I just feel like transparency is really important, and I think that it would be a healthy thing, and it wouldn't hurt to try this out and see how it works, and whether it is too much problem to deal with. But I'm with Councilman Berry that transparency is at the issue, at the crux of this.
Councilmember Thompson.
My question being regarding the size of the projects, because I'm more lean on the side of we, our job as well, and regarding our directors, as like yourself, is to hire qualified people and then to some degree oversee, but also trust. How much of when you have council that meets every other week, approving contracts that need to move forward, to me that would potential of making the city that already kind of moves slow move at a much slower pace. Is that incorrect, or can you speak to that?
Can I touch on something else you said a moment ago prior to that?
Sure.
Mind? I just want to go on record, make sure everybody did hear that he said I am qualified.
Well, you know,
but then I'll move past that. I mean, that's yeah, I know. What this would do is, you know, I certainly believe, and I agree with Councilman Berry and Councilperson Draper and yourself. I mean, there should be some sort of notification to the council when we sign contracts. An example of a very small contract that is commonly signed that you probably aren't aware of is a contract for $150 every year with Butte College to use their shooting range for training at the police department. That would be a very cumbersome thing to do, to write a staff report to bring that in here.
Man hours, exactly.
Yes, the person that was doing this job prior to myself doing it came up with a number one time that it cost approximately $1,500 to bring these things to council.
Right.
To spend $1,500 to get approval for a $150 expenditure probably doesn't make good business sense. However, you should be aware of what's going on. So it may not be that we bring each one for approval, but we bring each one and give it to you so you're aware of it. So you know these things exist. So when you're somewhere and somebody says, hey, I seen your cops over there and they're training, doing whatever it is they're doing out there, how does that work? You'll have the basic knowledge to say, okay, well, we have a contract with them each year for, a very small amount of money to utilize the facility. So I think that there's, probably some middle ground here that could be met or reached where we make sure that you're aware of what we're doing. Because the last thing I want to do is be out there doing things and unfortunately I do sometimes outrun myself, and you find out from other people as opposed from me.
Let me also, can I just get,
sure,
Councilman Thompson, I'm sorry. Let me clarify a couple things. One is that the staff can certainly provide a list. In fact, it could be on the agenda of contracts that are executed, but I really want to clarify primarily that these are budgeted, authorized items, that we're not signing contracts for things that are outside the budget. I don't want the folks in the audience to think Bill's running wild.
Yeah, I would definitely be in favor of an email notification or paper notification to staff or to, council, but having to us approve every contract, I think, is not, in my view, council should be taking care of some of the larger things that need to take place in regarding the direction of the city, taking care of some of the larger problems. If we're spending every council going over $150 and wasting staff time arguing, spending $300 in staff time, literally, negotiating and discussing $150 and then making everything a quagmire here, to me, is just not the direction that I want the city to go into. I definitely would love to have more transparency if this is what this is about, and regarding getting contracts sent over to us at some, relatively quick, time, so that we can see what's going on. But I see the city like this. You know, you have people who are in charge, you know, who are elected officials, who are our city council. Then we have managers. If we were to look at this like a business, and this was a coffee shop, if you forgive my analogy here, and you have to ask me, you know, we meet every 2 weeks. You have to ask me to buy milk to serve the clients for their espressos. And meanwhile, we're out of milk until you get approval from us. I think it's just kind of moving the city in the back way. We need to get things taken care of, have our citizens' needs met, have businesses, you know, things moving forward, and not having things just moving at a very snail, you know, rate just for the sake of us micromanaging everything that happens in the city. So again, transparency, yes. Micromanagement, no, please.
So there's a couple of additional council members in the queue, but I'm up now. So, and having a discussion about this, I was just really kind of perplexed about what the purpose of this is. Typically, first of all, we set the budget and we set the policy. That's who we are as a board. And that over the time, I can remember being a new mayor here that it had started like at 500 or 2,000 or 2,500, and that amount was so low to come back that we'd have 40 items on the agenda sometimes because you were trying to, you know, can we write this $500 check for this contract to have the copy machine serviced? And this is, I'm perplexed by this, but then when asking a couple of questions deeper, so going into, the request was made, I believe, by Councilmember Berry, to add, prior to the mayor signing any contract on behalf of the city, the contract shall have been reviewed and approved by the city council. Well, two things that it states there is the council as a whole sets the budget, and the contracts have already been done. There's 2 contracts waiting for my signature. Actually, I think there's about 60 of them right now of just little things that I sign on a regular basis. But I also believe that this just has something to do with, once again, micromanaging a system that we have no business micromanaging. And the people that we hire and put in place to do this have the right to order their own pencils, to service their own copy machine. And if we need to see all those, by all means, let the council members pay for the paper that it's going to cost to print all of this information on. It's as if you think we're, you know, that there's something wrong, or it's trying to take one more little right away from the mayor. I would gladly let somebody else sign. How many did you tell me I had to sign tonight, Jackie, before I left? 120, 60?
Probably about 80 signatures tonight.
Somebody else want to do that? But I don't understand the point. But to specifically take something out of the charter and add to it, then it's a charter change. So not only do they want to, it's red highlighted right here in the package. The additional information is prior to the mayor signing any contract on behalf of the city, the contract shall have been reviewed and approved by the city council. That's any action taken by the city that requires my signature, big or small. Councilmember Del Rosario? Well, it was Vice Mayor Goodson.
Yes.
Go ahead. I don't want to speculate or assume anything, but I would like to ask Councilwoman Draper and Councilman Berry, was there I know that the ceiling in regards to each department, the department head can spend under $10,000 and it not come to the council's attention. Were you looking, what figures precisely, the minimum, were you looking at? Because I can't imagine that you were thinking of, 50
I didn't think
cents.
there was going to be this much discussion about it. I thought it'd be just, okay, show all the council people what contracts are going to be signed. But this goes back 4 years ago. And Mayor, you know that you wanted to jeopardize the city's FAA funding for the airport by letting GPI use the hangars to store their equipment in. And that's what you proposed to do. And remember what I said, the exact words I wanted you to remember?
Yeah.
I said, I'm playing my bullshit card because that's jeopardizing our FAA funding. And I thought it was dropped then. You weren't going to do that. But anyway, I find out a month and a half ago or whatever, but it's been taken off the agenda several times. I can't get it, last meeting, that in 2014, that you issued a contract with GPI, 2 hangars to store their equipment in. That's for aeronautical use only. And I found out just as a casual conversation with the airport director that we needed more hangars out there to store aircraft, because people are wanting hangars to rent. And he said he evicted GPI in 2016, and I thought they shouldn't have been there. Store their equipment in there. But anyway, you all got a copy of the contract that GPI signed for 2 airport hangars to store their equipment in. Non-aeronautical use, which jeopardizes our FAA funding. Millions of dollars we get from the FAA. That's all I wanted to do, was make the council aware in the future who's signing contracts and for what purpose. Simple as that. Keep them honest. That's all I've been trying to do, keep people honest. But they insist on not doing it.
So I'm going to go ahead and speak to that. Unfortunately, Mr. Huber's not here this evening because he was called away, and I don't know if Derek knows that much about the FAA law. But this information is incorrect, and it's already been clarified. So just for the record, if I have to bring it back on January 2nd, when Mr. Huber will be here, he'll clarify this publicly also. So, and I don't randomly just sign contracts without the council's approval. And real estate contracts are typically done in closed session. So no, you would not have seen it on this dais. But this is what's happening here. What's happening here is what's been going on for the past 2 years. And I certainly hope the new council can do better than this. So there's other people in this queue. Del Rosario, Goodson.
I was going to suggest a compromise. One of the things that concerns me about the signing of contracts is the citizenry isn't always aware of what we're doing. And even if we don't make an agenda item out of it, possibly listing on the agenda somewhere that we approve these contracts. Then if people want to know what contracts were approved, they can look at the list, and if there are questions, they can pursue answers. And so rather than writing out a whole agenda, just a list of what has been approved maybe. It's just a compromise idea.
And once again, my opinion about this would be something that could roll over into the new council and let them decide how they want to handle this, because they're all good points. But I'll certainly have Mr. Huber speak to the FAA situation because it's incorrect, Mr. Berry. Councilmember Del Rosario, are you back in the queue?
No, I'm through.
We do have a speaker on this, or a couple speakers. My suggestion is this item be moved to another meeting to where the new council can have input on this. Bill Spear and Bobby O'Reilly.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I would say definitely no. You have a very qualified staff that do their jobs very well, and it's nothing more frustrating as a contractor than to get caught up with waiting for the city. There's a lot of in the business world, time is money, and even as a citizen coming here to the city council meetings, being able to contribute to the city, not doing a bunch of stuff that the staff can handle. I just had to do a building change, and I had to come, and I was painting, and we were trying to paint before the weather changed. And you guys need to be more business friendly. This is really silly in reality. You hire people, you pay them a lot of money, let them do their job. You do your job. Look at bigger stuff so we can, when we spend our time here and the public comes together, we can focus on the bigger direction. The staff that you guys have here are some really quality people, and I'm real amazed at how much they do with how little resources. Putting another step in it for their job. Okay, not only do they got to look at the contract, got to do all the stuff that they do, but then they got to do another process. It's maddening. You need to eliminate processes. I've been coming here for a little while, and I keep trying to brainwash you, and I say, do less and do it better. Eliminate steps. Take stuff off the table that you don't have to do. Concentrate on the bigger stuff, on steering the ship. Let the oars row. Let the navigator navigate. Let your staff do what they're really gifted at doing. They are really gifted and really qualified, and you guys don't have to overlook every contract. There's already processes in. It's been operating this way. Why try to make a change right before the next city council moves in? And when the next city council moves in, I pray that they would eliminate, they would start reducing ordinances and take them away, not saying, well, we're in the city council, what should we do? Well, let's make ordinances. Let's make it harder. Let's be more business friendly. We have an opportunity for Oroville to really grow if we'll just be more business friendly. Say, how can we help the public? How can we make things go faster instead of being silly on menial stuff? Thank you.
Mr. O'Reilly, and then Celia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, in my opinion, this is yet another ploy to micromanage from the council to the staff. It is not the job of the city council to micromanage, but rather let the city staff do the job that either they were assigned or those who were elected to do. To approve this would cost the city more money than it already does for these items, as stated already. There's no purpose behind it other than complete spite. Coming from a citizen, a constituent who reads between the lines, this is complete micromanaged spite so that you guys can feel the control in your fingertips. This needs to be done as a charter change, not this roundabout crap manner that's on the agenda now. You guys want to change into a city manager system rather than what we have now, but you can't even relinquish the control now. You want the control. So I'm going to take the words right out of Mr. Berry's mouth, and I'm going to pull my bullshit card.
Sorry, I'm still listening. This is Celia. So I'm going to give you a different perspective. And I managed lots of companies. This isn't a company. This is a public authority. And your jobs are checks and balances, actually, and policy. But you're here to make sure that our taxes are going to what we expect them to go to and the decisions you make. And I think there is perhaps a little bit of a disconnect that came up this year that has amplified this problem in a different way than anyone would have expected. In business, it would be a simple line item. You want to make a contract over $5,000, you get approval by city council. That's standard business. In this case, it seems that that's a smart idea, by the way. You represent the people who are paying you. And so it's important to have checks and balances. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with listing it either. It's not going to cost any more to type. It's not a big deal. I recommend you always err on the side of transparency. The micromanagement question that's been brought up, actually, I kind of disagree with, and I disagree on this level. I would be very disturbed if I learned that someone, whoever it is, brought through something that wasn't at all in the spirit or the agreement of what you had agreed and we had all discussed and learned that you had agreed. So, and I'm not suggesting that happened either. I'm simply suggesting that it's important to have a system that's consistent and transparent. And I bet you guys can figure that out without any more input from us.
My recommendation is that we hold this off until the next year when the next council pulls in.
I'd like to speak.
You in the queue?
I pushed the button.
Okay. There you go.
Making a bigger deal out of it than what it is. All I ask for is the council to review all the contracts. They don't have to vote on every one of them. But every council person needs to be aware of all the contracts made. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. And the pushback I'm getting seems like, you want to have it go forward where you can make contracts with a new council at will, Just make them. Don't tell anybody about them. Just write the contracts. But simply, all you have to do is make a list of the contracts, run a copy of them. Council can review them. You don't have to have staff do a staff report on it. But every council person needs to be aware of every council or contract that's being done.
And I agree with Councilman Hatley. Mm-hmm. We at least need a list, something.
Del Rosario and Thompson?
I agree with what Jack just said, and one of the reasons that I agree is because it wasn't too many years ago that this city had monies in different accounts, and there were a lot of problems trying to figure out where the money was and how much money we had, and so consequently, I think that the citizens are in actuality the oversight. They're the ones that decide whether or not a contract is a good contract. I know that the voting decision comes down to us, but I think the citizens should have the right to know what contracts we are signing and where the money is going and where the accounts are. We have a wonderful accountant now who's taking care of that, but I still think there is too much opportunity for people to do things that aren't completely above board. So I would vote for this. I don't want to move it to the next council.
So this is an ordinance. This is an ordinance to how it reads is to bring everything here, which is how it reads. So the wording needs to be changed because it doesn't say bring a list. So once again,
Madam Mayor, this is a budget policy, and if you'd like to change that, we can strike that part out and add that language to this policy. This is an internal policy used for purchasing purposes.
For purchasing purposes?
Well, contractual purposes, right. Which majority of which is purchasing.
I mean, adding charter language and adding additional charter language. I mean, I could care less. I'm going out, right? But just prior to the mayor signing any contract, got to bring it to the city. Everything comes either to closed session or open session. Yeah. Sherry Bunker, come on up. And Scott Thompson is in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. As a past council member, we used to have financials listed in the agenda once a month.
Right.
I have not seen that for a very long time, and I think that's part of the problem. And I don't think we need a I'm like Jack. It'd be nice to see a list of the contracts. It doesn't have to say that we filed a contract with so and so at such and such. It's, you know, this 900-page contract. It just, you know, on the 5th of January we signed a contract with so and so for X amount of dollars. It's quite easily done, and I don't think it would take $1,200 or $1,500 to put a list together. The wording on this is way wrong. I don't know why that was brought up, but we did used to have our financials in the agenda packet, and we haven't seen that for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. I am totally in agreement with that idea.
am I.
Yes. And that's, I was trying to figure out what the category was. It was financials. Thank you.
Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you. Yes, I think we're talking about the same thing, just with different words. Semantics is the issue here, and definitely as it reads in the agenda, it reads receive contract approval. The city council is to have that approval prior to be signed, and so that's what I have issue with. I have no problem with a list of contracts. I have no problem. I would love to be more aware and have the city more aware of what is being signed, but it definitely, again, it comes down to making things into a quagmire and micromanagement. Transparency, again, I already said it, but I'm all for that. It's the approval word in the agenda that I have issue with.
So the financials, aren't they online now, Ruth? Is that?
Yes, we purchased OpenGov. We are still hoping to get an intern to get that going and rolling. It's a slow start. We're down another person in our department for the last few months, so I could try to get an intern maybe in the next semester, January, to come and implement that. There's also the option, because it's a very manual process to upload monthly. There's another option. They said maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a year, and they'll do it. So that's another option. If we're low on staff, we could pay more and have them just come and extract the information, if that's the way the council would like to move forward with that.
So adding monthly financial reports to print, is that an issue with the information, or because
no, if you'd
now
like
that we
to
have
see them
OpenGov,
back in
it's
the agenda
on.
packets, that's fine.
It's on, but some people want to see it in print.
Interactive website is so much more user-friendly. You can look at it different ways. You can just look at certain things. You can zoom in and drill down.
So how about that maybe is one of the first meetings that you do with the new council, showing where all the financials and contracts are.
Sure.
And if the new council isn't necessarily happy with that, or the public, that you can print a copy also.
Yeah. We really need to
But that might be a good training for people to see that online, to see where the contracts are listed, to see if that, I don't
think contracts are part of the OpenGov financials. It's something.
Well, it's part, it's basically the checks and stuff we write.
It would list monthly expenditures.
Okay.
One option we'd have, Madam Mayor, as well, is we could add this to our quarterly report to the council about departmental activities, so that it's listed in that report, and you would get it 4 times a year with all of the contracts that we're bound to. Any new ones specifically listed for that quarter is an option if that's what you're looking for.
Councilmember Thompson, are you in the queue again? Councilmember Draper.
Well, I would like to add that the wording in red was contributed by staff. Okay, I didn't come up with that. Mr. Berry and I had talked about transparency and making the council and the public aware of what contracts have been signed. And so we're not trying to attack the mayor, okay? We're trying to make sure the information gets out there to us and to the public. And so I don't know how people can turn that around into an attack, but it's happening, all right? And I'm happy with a listing like Sherry Bunker mentioned, that we could have a listing of the contracts that have been signed and for the amounts and with whom.
I just asked Jackie earlier. I think that's a function of the city clerk. She holds all the agreements and contracts, and so maybe it's something we can put in Laserfish.
But anyway, that was our idea.
So actually, the request was made by Councilmember Berry to add this specifically.
Okay, well, I was his second, but I didn't do anything with the wording of this.
Vice Mayor Goodson?
You know, I was just listening to the discussion, and I was thinking one of the things that I appreciate, as we both are on the Sewer Commission Board, is every month we have it's called a warrant list, and it's expenditures, monthly expenditures, and we review them and we sign off. And so that's a simple that's a simple suggestion. It's very transparent. It takes a matter of a minute or two, and
That's
then we
something
move
also
forward.
that would be offered with the OpenGov website portal.
And so once again, because we have the OpenGov, we quit printing them, but I think with the new council having one of the meetings, have Ruth do a presentation with OpenGov up here and showing how you can move through it and what is on there for the public, and then coming back with how you can come up with a list of contracts. But once again, the way this item is worded is that's not that. So my suggestion is that you pull this out, you go back and put the OpenGov on as a presentation, and Jackie and Joanna can figure out how they can best get a list of contracts for the council's review. Does anybody have an issue with that?
I think that's great, and especially when not everyone is electronically savvy
Yes,
too.
that's what I'm
Right,
concerned
and so you
about,
would
is
want
the
a hard
fact
copy.
that not everyone uses, and not everyone can look at that budget and understand it. So I think there needs to be a listing somewhere of what they have done, like the contract with Butte College. How many people knew that we contract every year with Butte College?
I didn't.
Yeah. Council members who don't know that, Sherry knew it. But I really think that you need a visual along with the electronic.
So have we discussed it enough? So we're going to move this item off the agenda and bring it back in a couple of forms with the new council, correct? Okay. Derek, do I need to do anything else with this item?
No, the item has been thoroughly discussed.
Thank you. Oh my, council announcements. So item number 13 was pulled. Council announcements, discussion. Anybody? Administration reports.
I actually have a number of items since Bill and I have both been, Amy and the mayor have all been participating in the recovery efforts in Paradise. First comment is that Assembly Bill 41, our local legislators have been very active in helping all the communities. I think council's aware that we stand to lose 173,000 in property tax. 179,000 in property tax.
Right.
The way the property tax is allocated, it's a percent of the total county property tax. So with Paradise obviously being decreased, it affects us. Our local legislators, along with the Speaker of the Assembly, has introduced a bill that would make us whole. There are also some questions about what happens with transit occupancy tax. I assume you've all been reading the papers and watching, but there's discussion about where the debris from Paradise will go, how it's shipped out. They're talking millions of tons. They're also talking, today the figure was raised to 200,000 private trees on private property that can be removed. The question of where that debris, how it's handled, still being discussed. As has been mentioned several times here, and Gary's done a good job, we broadcasted the fact that if people come to Oroville with housing, particularly single-family housing, we are open for business. What I was going to say is in Chico, I think it probably takes you 3 years to get a house on the ground. I think that we can start building in 90 to 120 days if somebody brings raw property, wants to subdivide it and build. We are definitely open for business and really want to see some single-family homes developed. And in fact, there are several people that are already working on that. The animal shelter across the street is on hold, as I understand it, some lease issues. So I don't think that's going to happen. I'll see under here annexation update. We are still working with Mr. Seidenglantz, who says he does want to pursue his annexation. It's going to take environmental review, so we're working to get a quote to do that and provide that information to him. There are other properties where people are talking about it because they are interested in annexing again to develop housing.
And regarding, it's fine, never mind.
Madam Mayor, the next item on there is the ABM solar project. Gary has a real brief presentation on that. It's something that you should be aware of, that we're moving forward and negotiating with the ABM folks. It's regarding the city corporation yard and the movement of a project that was supposed to be at the airport. However, we did not get FAA approval for that project, or still in the review process with the FAA, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So we've had to kind of shift gears, find an alternative location. We believe this is a good location for this. It will help us to utilize space that is currently just used to collect garbage and turn it into a facility that will help us use another facility in the city that is extremely underutilized because of lack of parking.
Right.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and public. Gary Lehman, Chief Building Official, Community Development. This is the City of Oroville solar project, green energy. We did have as Chief indicated, a solar project going to go out on the airport because the FFA or FAA and other situations and circumstances, we have indicated to or have proposed to relocate it over into the city courtyard, creating a parking area for it. One thing that we're going to do is we have the clear lot that's up in the upper right hand corner there of the bare lot. It's vacant right now. We have a housing project. That's the senior housing project that is proposed to come in, and they don't have housing, and we don't have the housing for the staff to come and build it. So with that being said, it's becoming difficult for them to come build the senior housing project that we worked so long for. So with that being said, we have are proposing a possibility of putting in a little travel trailer park there for them to be able to utilize while they're either building that if the project goes forward, or the ability to put some housing to help those in the community that need the help. It would go there. Once that is done, then it would go back to its same structure, but it will be asphalt and paved. And then we're going to drop in the solar, which will be the elevated solar panels with a 10-foot clearance at the minimum, going up to a 14-foot. And what that will also do is create accessible or additional parking for the stadium parking for the high school. So then other cars, when it gets overloaded at the school, then they can go and park into that area underneath. So this is something that we're proposing to move that forward over. Here's what the look will be, kind of the layout of the panel that ABM has provided to us. And then in addition, in the future, this is the existing building that's over there at the courtyard that's going to be eventually removed with a new structure being put in and the solar put up on that. So with that being said, this is a project
That's kind of in discussion and in the works right now. The solar project has been going forward, but staff is currently working on that. So if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So the size of that, Councilmember Hapley's in the queue, but the size of that, just out of curiosity, how many? What?
Please. He's making a statement. Thank you.
What did you say? That's all, folks?
That's all, folks.
I got that. Somebody's got some music going on. Okay, so I had a question about how many cars, and then Councilmember Hatley. How many cars is that going to be? Additional parking spaces?
We haven't determined that, but it's going to be back in that area, so it will probably most likely be able to park between 50 and 100 cars, I'm certain.
Okay. Councilmember Hatley?
Thank you. In that area, if you could go back to that,
sure,
where it's going to be.
As soon as they get me up rolling.
There.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Up in the upper right-hand corner, that's where you're talking about.
Yes.
Now that's inside the secured perimeter of
the
courtyard.
Yes.
Now, are you going to add additional fencing to kind of block that off? Because if we have a lot of equipment and of course,
absolutely.
And then if we're going to allow the overflow from the school, or from the schools or whoever's using the field there, to come in there, where would the access be? And because we have to keep the one area secure, that. So how?
It would be accessing kind of, you see where the green is, and down below, they'd be accessing in through there with a circular going around.
Right now, Councilman Hatley, there's a ingress into where they park the Beeline buses. There'll have to be some negotiation with Beeline, BCAG to move the buses to the other side of the corporation yard. It will be fenced. The ingress and egress will be through what already exists there, right off of Mitchell, behind where the large structure's at that houses the aerial trucks.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I just wanted to figure out how we were going to secure the yard.
There will
because
be,
I know we have a lot of
correct. There will be.
We have a lot of stuff in there that
there will absolutely be fencing in.
Part of the project, it'll be required that it's fenced. I mean that the fence runs between our yard. We have to have a secure yard still. That may even include up to cantina wire or barbed wire on the top, so that there is no minimal amount of access. There will still be the alarms along the fence, so if somebody comes through the perimeter of the fence, it'll offset the alarms. But we are going to require ABM, when they do this project, to put in fencing. This is not a final design or anything that you have approved at this point. We're just having these conversations, and we wanted to bring you into it, and we will bring this back to you with the detail of the fencing and exact placement of the overhead solar, so that you can look at it before we contractually agree to this.
Well, I just wanted you to know that because being quite familiar with that yard, I just wanted to make sure that we'd thought about a whole lot of, and I'm sure you have. It's just that as long as you know I'm thinking about it too.
Yes,
so
sir.
That's what it was this about. I just wanted to make sure that we were going to have some way to secure that in there, so when you have people flowing in and out, we're not having issues in our yard.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
In addition, Council, we will be getting this asphalted and some infrastructure in there for electric vehicle charging. That can come off of the solar panels. Also, with the housing project, they've indicated to work with us where we could get the asphalt and some of that paid for as well, for providing them with the housing. So this is something that staff are working on as a bonus for the city and for them, and to be able to get things done with what's happened. it's affected a lot, as everybody's aware, and so housing is not available in motels or anything. So we're just doing our best that we can to help the city.
Mayor, I have one more question, if I could. On this, if you put in this mobile, or where they can park, you know, RVs or trailers or whatever they're going to put in there, as far as the sewer connections and that, are the size of the pipes that are close by there, because you're going to have to hook into the sewer system.
Yeah.
So are we going to have to do any upgrading there? And then if so, is that something that would be covered through FEMA or one of those type of things, or would it be out of the sewer fund? If we have to, I don't know how many more connections you could put on that property at the size of the pipe that's on it.
Staff is still in discussion on that. We haven't come up with any decisions on that at this point in time. However, there is sewer available right there at the roadway.
Right.
And we do have our sewer department, but it hasn't been determined as if exactly what we're going to do in this situation, where we're going to create some type of a pumping system, or put an underground, because we're going to put infrastructure in for electrical, because the electrical has to go there as well. Then we do the trench.
Councilman Hatley,
Pump station would be very expensive, but
we're not, Councilman Hatley, if I could, we're not going to put in pump stations or anything like that. Any infrastructure that's put in is going to be above ground. This is a temporary situation that is for transient workers to come in and help rebuild Paradise and rebuild.
I get that. I get
so
that, but
we will. There is an access to a manhole right there that we will tie into that, and we will work out the detail with SCORE about the number of EDUs and what we're adding to the sewer plant, which in turn we will put the cost back to the individuals that are there. They will be paying fair market value for parking in this. This is strictly temporary. It's going to be hopefully simultaneously going on as the solar project is getting installed.
Okay, my turn. What I'm asking too, are if there's any restrictions, because I know some of that area down there, the way the pipes flow and to get down to the plant, that there were some restricted areas that we were looking at before repairing, and I know they've cambered those lines numerous times, and I just want to be aware that we're not going to run into any issues where the next thing you know, now we're tearing up half the west end of town, you know, trying to get the line, if there are some restricted areas in there. That's all I was really asking about.
Yeah, no, and just to confirm, my pumping station wasn't an underground permanent pumping station type thing. It was above ground going to something, keeping it feasible. But the number of spaces that will be there will be, you know, limited as well because of the space.
I just wanted to ask, are we in committee reports? Is that what we're doing?
We are on council announcements and discussions, so the verbiage has changed, so I guess that would be committee reports too.
Then I have something, I'll be in the queue.
Thank you.
Am I next?
Go ahead.
Sure. Okay, I attended the Butte County Continuum of Care Homeless Committee yesterday, and we were updated about information at the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds. There are still about 700 newly homeless people there from the campfire. And we were told by Melanie Zamora from HUD that the state, FEMA, Red Cross, HUD, and other agencies are working together. So it would be a joint decision by all of those groups as to when that will be closed down. And Megan Malloy from Butte County Office of Ed said that there are about 4,000 displaced students from Paradise, and about 1,000 of those are unaccounted for and may have left the area. They're not sure. And she said remaining students don't need any more backpacks. If you or anyone you know is thinking of donating a backpack, what they do need, they need gas cards and bus passes or donations to buy those things for them to get to schools, because now their schools are more distant. And the next thing I wanted to find out, I've become aware that the city hasn't been accepting applications for the cannabis businesses, and I just wanted to publicly find out why.
The ordinance obviously doesn't go into effect until January 4th, and there's a whole procedure that council would have to go through to accept applications. So you're going to have to set up a fee structure, you're going to have to set up a procedure, and then you're going to have to go through a process to vet those applications. I will say from my perspective, I'm not going to put this on anybody else, it would take a number of months to do that. We did verify in terms of a proposal to go the next step if we were to decide to use SCI, and is that the name of the firm? They thought it would be 4 to 6 months to go through that process. I understood, talking to Councilmember Dosario, that Reading might have gone through it more rapidly, but from my perspective, if the new council, and this is me talking, it's not anybody else, if the new council decides they want to keep the ordinance, we would certainly move full speed. If they wanted to rescind the ordinance, it seemed pointless to spend the money and the resources to do it. That's the reason.
And so there's no legal reason for not going ahead?
Well, we can't go ahead until after the January 4th. I mean, we could accept applications if we had the process in place, but we couldn't take any action.
Well, I talked with the city administrator in Reading today, and it took them 2 weeks after the second reading to get that all squared away. And he suggested that the reason it would take 4 to 6 months with our consulting firm is because they have other clients that they're working with as well. They didn't even hire a consultant up there. They simply did it themselves. Their city attorney and others did the panel discussions and meetings, and
well,
et cetera.
We're certainly happy to talk to Reading. In fact, having heard that, already sent a note to Barry Tippin, the city manager. Again, if the council then decides that it's a direction they want to proceed, if that's a reasonable time period, we'll do it in that reasonable time period.
I just thought it was interesting, and I thought it would be good for the public to be aware of this. The other thing is that from what I understood talking with a few people today, that they could at this time get a general application and a conditional use permit with the understanding that the fee schedule would be released later. Is that correct? Maybe the attorney could address that.
Well, I'm actually going to address something different. I think this is not a proper discussion
Right.
under the Brown Act, and
Right.
I think we're getting way afar from what is agendized here. What I would recommend, if it's the direction of the council to have a general discussion, a directional item, is that you bring that back at a meeting in January so that you can coordinate with your staff to discuss some of these issues. You can certainly give them some very bare bones direction tonight, but I think we're starting to get into a policy discussion, and so I think that needs to actually be on the agenda and expressly written. So my recommendation would be, if it's the intent to continue having this discussion, that you put it on the agenda either at your next meeting.
That was all I had to say. I just want this to be made public, and that is the situation. Thank you.
Anybody else have any council or committee reports?
I would like to say that I attended my last meeting at the Butte County Air Quality Control Board, and we are very fortunate to have a board that is well organized, runs efficiently, and does a good job in keeping our air clean. We had a few days when we were in the red zone as far as air is concerned. It had to do with the fire. Other than that, I have really been impressed with their work. I don't think I've ever sat with a group of people who are more dedicated and conscientious about the work product that they put out. They always had answers. They were just very efficient. And it would behoove people to attend those meetings. They occur in Chico. They're excellent information, and the air is something we all share. And I think you should know more about it.
Sure. I just want to thank Ruth. Ruth, it's so Christmassy in here. Thank you so much for decorating. It really lifts the,
Annie, don't
the
leave.
atmosphere. Thank you.
This is my last meeting. Don't leave. I mean, I'll be here on January 2nd, but I mean, I get to do committee reports. I mean, because I'm still on a few committees, but I do have a few things to say. So it's been a rough 6 weeks for all of us, and like Tom said, Bill, Tom and I have been at the emergency services. It started daily, and then you realize they have all three of us, which, you know, in that time, believe it or not, the charter says the mayor's in charge when you have that type of crisis. And so we were trying desperately to make sure that we were plugging all the holes anywhere we could for Paradise and the fire. And one of the things that right out of the gate, and maybe I've spoke of this, but I'm going to say it again, it's why the municipal auditorium is being used. The county called the Oroville Hope Center within hours and asked them to be the receiving of all the donations that were going to start pouring in. And the Haydens said yes, along with the rest of the helpers in the community. And I see the people shaking their heads. I can't tell you the amount of man hours that our community stepped up to the plate and did. The Hope Center, within minutes, it was evident that the Hope Center wasn't going to be big enough. So then we opened the municipal auditorium. Within an hour, it wasn't going to be big enough. So then I went on to find additional space along with Bobby O'Reilly and a few other people. And I mean, you were crawling out of your skin trying to make things happen faster than the fire. I mean, it was just devastating. But what's the aftermath is now what we're starting to face. Linda Draper touched a little bit on what's happening at the COC, but when we're on with FEMA on these calls, frankly, I had to just give up because it's not only is it depressing, it's just extra depressing when it's tying up all of our key staff in the same meetings and they do nothing. I mean, ultimately, you get in there. We had in less than 8 hours' notice, over 300 volunteers show up from the Mormon Church to repackage the food supplies. We have almost 1,000 people working every day as volunteers here, and they still could not find a distribution center in Chico. And to this day, they're still not giving credit to Oroville for what we've done. And I'm trying to be very polite about that. But when we sit in these meetings and the names for the Oroville in these branches are still to be determined, and the three of us have sat there for the past 5 weeks in those meetings, that's difficult. And yesterday, at the meeting that they had in Chico, they took the Barber site for the hauling of the trash off the table. The Eaton property was taken off the table. So not only are we going to get the trash, but we're going to get the trailers. And I personally have a problem with that. I personally have a problem that we have stepped up as a community and we've done everything we can to help. And we're going to end up taking more than our proportionate share when it comes to what we're capable of handling as a community, as the southern region of the county. And so my goal, actually, Tom and I are going to probably meet with FEMA tomorrow, along with the new incoming mayor. But we're going to talk because I've been working on numbers with Biggs and Gridley, and ultimately the last numbers, like Linda said, there's 700 plus still living in Silver Dollar or in the fairgrounds. And these figures change every day, but I'm going to go over some numbers. And Aaron's sitting back there, Aaron Wright from State Parks. But here's some of the things that we hear every day. We sit in the meeting, it's solid at that time, and then they change it by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have about 700 people still living at Silver Dollar. There's about 230,000 people that live in Butte County. And I'm going to start with the incorporated areas first. Chico has about 92,000. Biggs has about 2,000. Gridley has about 7. Oroville has about 20. That's just rough numbers. So that's a total of about 120,000. The unincorporated area is about 81. But let's stick with the incorporated areas because if we're all going to help, we want to help with our proportionate share of what our communities can handle. Because the FEMA trailers, they're looking for sites to put the FEMA trailers. If you were to break this down, just based on population and service size, so they're saying they're needing about 2,000 trailers. That was today or yesterday. Tomorrow it might be different, but right now 2,000. Just looking, and I had some help with this with one of the Biggs council members. That would mean Chico would take 1,550 trailers. Gridley would take about 120. Oroville would take about 304. Biggs could handle about 32. For Chico to turn down 200 trailers, for Chico to not come up with 200 trailers, that's difficult. I see where this is going. And as a community, we need to step up because I'm telling you, when they go to the Chico City Council, it's completely filled that they don't want the trailers and they don't want the trash. Where else is it going to go? Now, I'm all for helping proportionately, but we can't handle 1,000 to 2,000 trailers in the South County. We can't handle that. We don't have the services. We don't have the infrastructure. And we have to take our place at the table and say enough's enough. Just example of the state parks. The state parks, they're taking all of the full service hookups for the next 2 years. And the 18 months, that's going to affect our recreation. It's going to affect, they're taking all the local hookups for the non-FEMA trailers. And so it's not a time for question, but I'm just saying that if they need 2,000 trailers, we have to find a way to spread these out through the entire county as a whole, incorporated and unincorporated areas. We can certainly take more than 300, but we can't take 2,000. And we need to use our voice to make sure that we sit at the table, that everybody works together on this as opposed to taking 100% of it. At Butte County Association of Governments, when I sat there, that was one of the discussions that they had. And they talked about how having cement trucks and trucks hauling trash through their community was going to be harmful to Chico. And I was able to speak politely. I said, well, I can certainly speak to that because Oroville's had its share of big trucks coming through its community for the past 2 years because of the spillway. And, the next day, they're not going to be hauling trash through their community. Now, my understanding, Steve Seidenglanz's property has been offered up. So now they're going to haul the trash all the way down the freeway to our community. Now, I don't know that I have so much of a problem with that because it's not going directly through our city, but we certainly need to be at the table. And I'm just throwing that out there that we have staff that's been working hard on it, and this is going to have to be turned over to the new council, but we need to be at the table and make sure that this is being distributed evenly. So I can talk to you afterwards. I can talk to you afterwards about it.
None of us can speak. Is that, it's just the council?
This is, I'm giving my committee reports of what I've been doing. And with that, I'm not going to be sitting on any more committee. Well, I take that back. I do have a few meetings till the end of the year. I'm going to go ahead and say it tonight, and I'm going to say it on the 2nd. It's been a wonderful opportunity to be your mayor for the past 8 years. I can't, my husband's sitting here tonight. It's one of the first times we've tried to keep this separate from our life at home, but it's just been a true privilege to be here. It's harder than it looks to be up here, and I hope I made you proud. And so I will be back on the 2nd because I will still be the mayor for the first half of the meeting or the first few minutes. But anyway, I'm looking forward to spending some time with my family. I'll still be involved. I'll just be on that side of the podium now and be able to say whatever I want. So, all right. All right. So with that, is there anybody else? Anybody? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. The next regularly scheduled meeting is January 2nd at 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, okay.